I was thinking, because of the situations going on in the world today with monkeypox and COVID and vaccines, and I was thinking about having a little more serious podcast on my experience in the 70s and 80s concerning STDs, HIV, and AIDS. My name is Eric, and welcome to the craziness that lives inside my head. I have to qualify what I'm about to say. Because of my weight being close to 400 pounds, no, I was not able to walk out my front door like friends I know and have sex. It has happened now. It has happened. The Christmas of 76, I moved to my own apartment in 75, and I think the following year, because I moved on Christmas, so a year later, 76 in Christmas, I was shopping, Christmas shopping, down in downtown Brooklyn, and this guy was on Fulton Street. He was driving slow. I looked, he looked, he blew his horn. I looked again. He said, "You need a ride?" Of course, I hopped in the car. Yes, it was that easy back in the 70s to have sex. Like I said, of course, he was a chubby chaser, you know. That's the only way I had sex. Most of the sex I've had back then was with guys who like big guys, you know. And then I remember I had a couple of friends. And this is in the early 80s. I was still drinking. His name was Robert. Robert and I was hanging out. We go into Nickel Bar. Nickel Bar was on 72nd Street. Go into Nickel Bar. He gets three guys to buy him drinks. And I'm sitting there next to him. I felt that was very embarrassing. I'm sitting next to Robert. Now I could be his lover. The guys would come up to him and start rapping to him, give him a drink. Nobody came up to me, rapped to me, give me a drink. That's how easy it was for him to have sex. I'm not going to say I didn't have sex, because when AIDS came out, a lot of friends of mine said that I was lucky. I should say back in the 90s and 2000s, they said, "Oh, you were lucky. You survived AIDS because you was fat." I still was having sex. You had a lot of, when I found out in the early 80s, they had a group called Mirth and Girth, and I went to Mirth and Girth meeting. Mirth and Girth was a group for fat guys and guys who like fat. Yeah, fat guys. Yeah. I still had sex. No, I wasn't able to have sex as much as friends of mine. I remember my friend Richie. We had a mutual friend named Eddie. And I remember I was living in what they call Sugar Hill, up in Harlem, called Sugar Hill. I rented a room. I was living by myself. And I think that year, I lived there a year and a half. Well, the first year I had sex with 13 guys. Wow, that was a lot. I know some people might say, "Wow, you're a slut." But wow, that's a lot of guys. And that was a badge of honor. I had sex with 13 guys. I called up my friend Richie. I said, "Richie, I had sex with 13 guys." And he would say, "Oh, please. Eddie had sex with 13 men in one night and took you a whole year to do that." Yes, you might say, "Wow." Even I said, "Wow." Well, not really. If you know Eddie, she was a big slut. Bigger than me. Well, anyway, yes, I survived so far, knock on wood, because I'm still alive, and it's still going on. I survived whatever I survived. It's lucky that I didn't come down with HIV. I had 3 friends that died of it, and the scary part when the first one who died, the scary one was we were at one of those sex meetings, and him and I shared the same guy. The guy we shared had came down with HIV and passed away. Then he came down with HIV, passed away. No, nothing happens with me. See, but then again, like I said, I didn't have 13 men in one night. There was a lot of sex going on. Still a lot of sex going on. And still a lot of sex going on. And the reason why I thought about doing this podcast is because I was on the Dateline recently, and there's a thing that the CDC is talking about monkeypox and asking the gay community, gay men, to be careful. Well, I saw two guys on the Datelines. Now this is a couple of days ago. This is 2020, 2022. This is June. It's Gay Pride Month. Both guys was going to, I guess, to live out in, I don't know where they live, but they was going to they both was going to Gay Pride. One was going to New York City. I think the other one was coming down in Virginia, and they was going to both said they're going to rent a room, and they setting up orgies. Because they went on the Dateline. Said, I'm gonna be in your neighborhood, in your city, and my hotel. I'm gonna hotel. I'm looking to party. Parties or orgy. They don't call it orgy now. What they call it, party. I'm looking to party, and you're welcome, and bring your friends. And I'm like, wow, there's a thing called monkeypox going on. Guys are still getting HIV. Guys are still getting, especially older people like me, still getting STDs. Wow. And you would see, somebody would say, well, you would think. Yeah, you would think. But nothing's changed. Even back then, guys were still having sex. When I got sober and I went to an AA meeting, and I'm sitting in an AA meeting, and this guy, who's also trying to get sober, was telling his story of what happened. He's HIV. I'm going to be honest with you, he was a white guy. He liked young black boys. So he would go to the bus stop, what is it called, on 42nd Street and 8th Avenue, the bus terminal. He would go to the bus terminal and he would pick up homeless boys. Boys would get off the bus, the runaway boys, I shouldn't say boys. They were from 18 to 20, they weren't, because he picked up one guy that was in his 20s. And he's trying to get sober. He's HIV. Back then, if someone said HIV, I guess, I don't know what that meant back then, because if you tell somebody it's HIV, they might say, well, he didn't come down with AIDS. He's just infected. He didn't come down with AIDS yet. This is before they came out with that other drug, AS, whatever they're taking. Well, anyway, to make a long story short, he likes young black men. And he would go to the bus terminal on 8th Avenue, 42nd Street, hang out there, see who gets off the bus. You can always tell the guys who has no place to go, no place to stay, or they runaways. For I know, the one he talked about was definitely in his 20s, so I hate to think of him being, a pedophile, but he didn't say anything about that. If he was, he didn't mention the age. But the guy he mentioned about was in his 20s, brought the guy home. He screwed the guy, and the condom broke. And he was so scared and he explained to the guy, blah, 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 the condom broke, blah, blah, I'm sorry, and all like this, and he told the guy he had to go get tested and just like that. And that was the end of that story. But in my opinion, that's not the end of the story. He did not tell the guy, and he admitted to this, he didn't tell the guy before they had sex that he was HIV. He didn't tell the guy and then after it happened, then he told the guy he was HIV, and all the precautionary that he has to take because he was HIV. Now he got to be careful, he got to get tested on like this. And then that was the end of it, and the guy left. And I'm like, in my mind, you're lucky the guy didn't kill your freaking ass, because there's some guys out there would have killed you. You didn't tell him you were HIV. You having sex with him. The condom broke. And now, what? And then you said, well, I don't know. You said, why did I bring this story up? Because what's going on today with this monkeypox, and they keep saying, I like that, monkeypox isn't a big thing. Monkeypox, I mean, they keep saying they don't want to stigmatize it. They don't want to do it the way they did HIV, but they are doing it. CDC is doing us, sending out messages. I heard, well, the way I read it, CDC sending out messages and caution to gay and bisexual men. Didn't they do that in HIV? Didn't they do the same thing? But then again, we all have to take responsibility for our own life. You know, I get depressed sometimes when I think I lost a lot of friends in the 80s. I mean, 70s was one big orgy. Then came the 80s, and for some, I have friends who haven't had sex in the 80s. I don't know, having sex now. They're still alive, so maybe they didn't have sex. They claim they didn't have sex in the 80s and 90s. Well, I did. Again, I wasn't able to run the streets. See, I have a friend who says to me, "You're lucky that you was fat, because if you was skinny," he claimed if I was skinny, I would have been gorgeous. You would have been out there in the streets, and he's right. If I was, I'm going to tell you something. I know he was right, because when I lost, my lowest weight was 206 pounds. That was my lowest weight. I had sex more in my 50s and 60s than I did in my 20s. I was smaller in my 50s and 60s. I was two in my 50s. I think I was down to 250, and I went down to 206. I had a lot of sex compared to what I had when I was 400 pounds back in the 70s. I'm just saying, my name is Eric, and thank you for listening to this craziness that lives inside my head.